All right, so let's start with TCU, the Horned Frogs. TCU got absolutely hosed in the first playoff rankings. And there's a number of different ways that you can go about this, but I first want to state, before I go into any of the details about their actual resume or what they've done as a team on the field, the simple fact is this. If TCU were Oklahoma or Texas with the same exact resume, they would be no worse than 4. This is brand bias at its finest, and it's hurt TCU. Let's just go through kind of what I think of them as a team and really what they have on their resume when you're looking at them from kind of a subjective standpoint. First and foremost, they have 2 better wins than any of the wins that, let's say, Clemson has, who are in the top 4, because that Oklahoma State win is standing up and the Kansas State win is standing up. Kansas State is at 13, Oklahoma State is at 18. Now, granted, you're going to get 3 ranked wins from Clemson, but the problem is that they're all behind both Oklahoma State and Kansas State. So here's TCU as an undefeated, leading the Big 12, and they've got 2 better wins than any win Clemson has. So that's number 1. They also did something in this season. I don't know how much that they actually looked at this, speaking of the committee, but remember, and I've told you on this podcast earlier in the year, they did something last month that has been done twice in college football history, which is pretty remarkable. So they beat, in 1 calendar month, a ranked opponent every single week out. It's only been done twice before, 2012 Stanford, 1960 Iowa. So they were doing things that were historic. That's the second thing. Then you just look at what they are on the field. Well, this is a top 5 scoring offense and total offense in college football. It's an offense that, by the way, is the only offense in the sport that's averaging 300 passing yards and rushing for 200 yards a game, plus have 20 passing touchdowns and have 20 rushing touchdowns. So they are balanced on offense, very balanced. If you look at them just from a team perspective, you're going to look at the fact that they've got a better strength of record and strength of schedule than, let's say, Clemson, who's in the top 4 right now. They've got a better quarterback than Clemson right now, in particular after a week in which Clemson had to bench their starter when they were down against Syracuse at home. Max Duggan is a Heisman Trophy candidate at this point going into November. So all of those things are better than, let's say, Clemson, who's 3 spots ahead of them at number 4. It doesn't make much sense to me, except for the fact that Clemson is, right now, a blue blood. They've got a national championship on display. I think that carries the day. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right that we allow history to dictate how we view these teams specifically this year. I understand it can inform our decisions, but is that right? Is that right to judge Max Duggan against Trevor Lawrence? I don't think that that's right. Is it right to judge Sonny Dykes in his first year at TCU against the Deshaun Watson Clemson team that won a national championship? I don't think that's right. But that's clearly what happened, because this is blue blood bias. And the fact remains, as I said before, if Oklahoma or Texas from the Big 12 had the exact same schedule and resume and outcome as TCU, they'd be no worse than number 4. This is brand biased at its finest. And the hard part for me is that you look at this now and like, TCU needs some help. So, and I'll get to this later, but this matters. These rankings matter because it sets the stage for everything that goes on the rest of the year. And so now you're looking at it, and I don't know if you can say that TCU controls their own destiny as an undefeated in the Power 5 in what I think is the deepest league in the country this year. They might not be the best league in the country, and I'm not arguing that they are the Big 12, but I am arguing they're the deepest, and this team is undefeated. Okay? It's pretty clear to me that they need some help, even if they run the table. I think they desperately need Alabama to lose. at some point, whether it's this week against LSU or maybe in the future in the SEC championship game. But I think TCU needs some help based on the way this committee is viewing them. And I don't think that that's right. And I think it has everything to do with their standing within the sport as far as being a blue blood or not a blue blood. All right. The burden of proof is clearly on TCU. I thought they got jobbed more than anybody else in these first rankings.